Well, it's just live. All right, we're live.
While I'm working on this, why don't you go ahead and sort of introduce what
All
we're
right.
doing?
So, welcome to Books We Never Read. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Jason.
There
Sorry.
you go. And this is an episode of Except for Those We Have, where we talk about a book that one or both of us have read before. This is also a quality control test. Our last live had very poor quality, and we're wondering if it was just that we were on the wrong internet or whatever. So we're just trying this out, and you're helping us test this out while we also knock out an episode of Except for Those We Have. So today's Except for Those We Have is going to be about the novel Ender's Game. Can you tell us who that's by?
It is by Orson Scott Card.
There you go. We both have actually read this, but he read it first. Wow, it looks way better so far. But there's also nobody else on here, and who knows? And
That
it shouldn't have an issue. Yeah, it shouldn't have anything to do with it, but you never know.
Okay.
So, anyways, we've both read this one, but this is about him, not about me.
Correct.
So, first of all, tell us your initial overall thoughts on Ender's Game.
Well, so the first thing I want to say is this is one of the first science fiction novels that I ever really remember reading. I don't know how old I was. I was probably in like junior high or high school, and science fiction was kind of always interesting to me. One of my first memories of watching a movie with my dad is I watched the end of A New Hope with my dad and my uncle at my grandmother's house. And it was on like the big TV, like the one that was built into a cabinet.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I remember watching the Star Destroyers and all that stuff, and I thought it was so cool. And I've always enjoyed science fiction. And I think what was interesting about Ender's Game specifically was that it was a book that was about kids, and so it was about like me, more or less. Even though Ender is like 9 years old, so I was not 9 when I read this. I was much older by that point. And I've read a lot of stuff by Orson Scott Card. He has there are many other books that are in this series that are not nearly my favorite compared to this, but they're good. He has The Tales of Alvin Maker, which is almost like a magic realism kind of thing, but it's set in like almost like colonial America, but it's about sort of like everybody having these knacks where they can find water, or like they have like these different little magical abilities. It's pretty good. There's a lot of those. And then he's written like some other things, and some of the things on our possible book reading list are also him. But this is an exciting book. It's a book about sort of like kids doing combat. The idea being that there is this alien threat, and that they have to defend Earth, and they find like the best and brightest minds, and then they make them fight these aliens. And there's like a fantastic twist or they're training to fight aliens. Let me put it that way. And then there's a fantastic twist by the end that is really good.
Good. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, one other thing that I like about this is that like Ender is the name of the main character, Ender Wiggin, and he's not like a hero. If anything, it's a tragedy. All of the kids in this book were like drafted at like 7 or 8, and they know nothing other than how to destroy. And so a lot of people see it as a tragedy, but Orson Scott Card doesn't want you to see it that way. He doesn't want you to think of like how terrible it must be for these children. He, it's just a story, and they're like, while they are victims, that wasn't like really his intent. For them to be victims, because they're also heroes, right? They saved the human race from an imminent threat, or that's what their purpose is to do. So that was all.
Okay. So what would you say the like prevailing motifs or themes are throughout this book that people could kind of follow along with?
Really, a lot of the story is about like it's part of the motif is, or part of the story is about finding connection between like yourself and the other, right? Like trying to find the connection. There's no communication between humans and these aliens, and how do we understand, or like, did we start this? They started it. It's a very Dark Force kind of idea, right? Like they found out we're here, they're coming. And so a lot of that about like understanding your enemies, and Ender in the book has other enemies that are children, that are like kind of like vying for power in this weird way. And and so him kind of like learning how to deal with that. And there's also this interesting kind of dynamic. He has a brother and a sister, and his brother is like a literal psychopath, and his sister is basically a pacifist, and he is like the perfect blend of the two. But it's sort of about fighting your inner demons and finding this balance between these two sides of yourself, and it's externalized by taking a look at his relationship with his siblings.
So this is a book like about kids and with kids.
About
but
kids
would you
with
say
kids.
that it's a book for kids? Like,
Sure.
is it like young adult?
I would say it's also a book for kids. I don't know that I would call it like young adult. This was done before like we had a concept of that, really. It's not necessarily written in that way, but it is something that I think children can enjoy and that I think adults can enjoy. Now the sequels are definitely more geared towards adults. There's like some interesting, philosophical questions that have to do with the end of this book and that are sort of tackled in the others. So.
Interesting. Let's see.
There is a fantastic movie. One of the few like book to movie adaptations that I think was really good. I don't know who directed it. It's called Ender's Game. If you didn't want to read the book, or if you have read the book but have never seen the movie, I would definitely suggest it.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think you read this until we met.
Right.
Yeah.
No, because we watched the movie,
Right.
And then it made me interested in the book. But after I read the book, I realized I was probably more interested in the sequel.
Yeah.
I really want to know the next part.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a quick read. Ultimately, it's not complicated. It's got great characters and great development from a very good author. And it's definitely something that I would highly suggest. It hasn't been the most impactful book in my life, no, but I chose it to be the topic today because I think that it was really like one of the first sci-fi books that I remember. And back here I've got like Foundation and all these other like kind of
like core sci-fi
readings.
Yeah, like Sci-Fi 101.
Yeah, and I think Ender's Game is one of those.
Yeah.
Like it may not have been one of the granddaddies, but it is one.
So let's see. I had another question and it flew right out. If you could ask Orson Scott Card a question about this novel, what would it be?
Oh. I don't know. I think I'd probably ask him a little more about like his concept of like this kid thing, right? Like I've only like read an interview with him where he said like I don't think you're supposed to like pity these children, but then I want to know like I'd like some elaboration on that.
Yeah.
Like so like then what? If it's not pity, then what?
Right. Because how can we help but pity kids that are born knowing they were bred to do this?
At the same time, like what they're doing sounds awesome. They have like these like laser tag battles basically where they're practicing tactics and commanding and stuff like that. And I would do that now, right? I'm not here for the like, hey, eventually you're gonna have to go fight this like alien threat or whatever because I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to fight at all because I might lose. But like what they're doing is super cool. And in the movie they just do a great job of like showing the little laser tag battles or whatever. But yeah, so if like, what are they, right? They're not really heroes because they didn't like choose this. It's sort of a reluctant hero aspect. I don't know. Maybe something like that.
Okay, so one of the cool things about reading sci-fi, especially sci-fi written in the past, is seeing what elements of technology have come about since then that we do have now that's similar to, or how the variation of it is a little different. Is there any piece of technology in this book that you now see today?
Nintendo Switches. I'm not even joking. So this book was written, I think, hang on, I checked it a second ago.
77.
Well, so there's copyright in 1977, but it says here that the first edition was published in 1985. So by 1985, we had computers ish, right? But one of the
and Atari.
Yeah. Well, but one of the cool like things that he uses, so number one, they have email, which was like not a thing yet, but there's basically email. And they also have these like gaming systems that are adaptive, right? They're AI basically, and depending on like what the choices that you make and what you're doing, the game changes to you. And we have that now. Like we have things that can do that, and maybe not to the extent yet that was in the book in particular, but we do have that. And if I'm not mistaken, it was like a handheld kind of thing, or it was like it was a desk, right, which is basically a laptop. And so that's kind of cool. As far as like the space technology, we don't do space all that much anymore, so none of that happened. But.
Yeah. And then, okay, so if you have to be in this book. You are in this book.
Yeah.
Think of all the characters in this book. Who are you? Are you one of the ones at the academy? Are you one of the siblings? Are you one of the parents? Who are you in this book?
If I had to be honest, I'm probably Ender's dad. I don't want that, but I'm probably like he's like a scientist and like a good citizen sort of character. He's not in the book very much at all, right?
Yeah.
So if I was honest, that's probably what I ended up being. If I had to take a second pick, it's highly likely I would end up being one of the adults that is commanding the children, because that's just what I am in real life, right?
Yeah.
So and so in the movie, it's played by Harrison Ford, the main like kind of commander for the kids, and so that's another option. But if I had to be a kid, there is I'm sorry, but I'm drawing a blank now. There is a kid who actually gets his own spinoff, and he's really cool. And if I had to be a kid, I'd guess I'd like to be him. God, what is that guy's name? Sorry, I didn't think I'd have to talk about him. Anyway, it's like his sidekick, right? I'd like to be the sidekick. So,
yeah. Very cool. And then
Bean. His name is Bean.
Good job.
Yeah, Bean.
Awesome. And then, okay, so if you haven't read Ender's Game, are we recommending that you read Ender's Game if you're interested in sci-fi?
Yes, I think so. Now, I will say this. There is currently, there are some hangups about Orson Scott Card. He has some, let's call them antiquated ideas about groups of people, right? And that is, I'll call it problematic, right? That does show up to some extent in some of his writings. That's true. And if you are the kind of person who, for like, I'm going to say political reasons, right, wants to not read an author, then that's fine, right? That's totally fine. But just because a person has what some of us would consider bigoted ideas does not mean that they are a bad author.
Yeah.
And you just have to kind of make that choice yourself, and so like be aware that that is a concern. But he is still a fantastic author. And I don't know much about his politics or anything else. I'm vaguely aware of the concerns, because I'll be honest, I have not read Orson Scott Card in a long time, because I've read most everything. There is a new book or two out that I've put on our list as a possibility. But yeah, it's similar to like what's going on with Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter meant a lot to a lot of people, and there are concerns now about that author. And the same thing is true here. This was an important book to me.
So if you have read Ender's Game, as you have read Ender's Game, do you have any recommendations for other books or other authors? Like if you liked Ender's Game, you might also like this.
That's a tough one. We'll have to write these questions down. This is good. Off the top of my head, I'm gonna have to wait on that.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to wait on that. If anything, there might just be like shows that I would recommend that I think are similar.
Yeah.
So for example, I don't think that the book series, The Foundation, is very similar at all. But in some ways, there's some similarities with the Apple TV Foundation. So I definitely suggest that one. And then like maybe The Expanse or something like that. That has like some similar vibes to it on some levels. But as far as like the kid aspect and like the war aspect, I don't really read science fiction that's just like about big war. There's some science fiction I'm just going to recommend anyway, and that's Children of Time. It maybe, if anything, that one kind of harkens back, because the children are the spiders, like in a weird way, right? Like the spiders are the children.
We have done a series on Children of Time, and I will have a card or link to that.
Yep.
Where you can click it.
But I'm sure some other books that are directly behind me will come to mind as soon as I put this down and we end this video, and I will put those in the comments if I remember something that I should have said.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to say about this book?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, if you guys have any other questions or any other recommendations, like if you've read Ender's Game and you also really liked something else, drop those in the comments below. If
Definitely interested in, if you enjoyed this and you have some recommendations, I'm interested.
yeah, and if you have any recommendations for any books for our book club to read, please include those in the comment box below as well. We are on Goodreads at Books We Never Read. Our regular episodes air at 10 a.m. on Sundays Central Time. So if this is the first video that you're ever seeing of us, please join us for those conversations. You can check out all of our playlisted episodes, our syllabus episodes, everything in the playlist section of our channel.
Yep. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us.
Happy reading.
See you next time.